This episode is proudly supported by Pepe Sayer Australian Cultured Butter.
The Pepe Sayer all new Australian butter sheets. Everything we've learned over the last 12 years, we've put into making this new butter sheet. Combined with a brand spanking new shiny machine from Switzerland, we're able now to produce this beautiful butter sheet that's so easy to laminate with. So it's pliable, it's very fresh. If you're an Australian baker buying our butter sheets, they're made weekly. The formulation, it's a beautiful unsalted butter that will work for savoury and sweet. I think it's a perfect balance there. The bakers and pastry chefs that are using it are just raving about it.
For more information, go to pepesayer.com.au.
I'm not really good at anything else, so I better be doing a damn good job of this, even though it's even though the hours are long and the work is hard.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. In all the decades I've been a food communicator, and yes, I've been around a while, there has been many a moment where the notion that fine dining is dead has been touted, and yet for all the times that's happened, it's never even remotely been true. The way we dine has certainly changed and evolved, and indeed, the very embodiment of fine dining has evolved too. So just what is a modern Australian finer diner these days? Tom Bromwich is a co-owner and chef of Ennui in Sydney. Tom, how are you?
I'm really well, mate. How are you going?
I'm good. You've got a business there that's been ticking along for not too long, but long enough. Most recently, how's things going?
Things have been going really well. It's been absolutely gangbusters since September last year when we finally got things off the ground, and we're still moving along. We're still here.
It's an amazing little site, a beautiful building, and an interesting concept as well as sort of a fine dining in notion, but a walk-in and a relaxed place as well. Tell us a bit about Ennui.
Yeah, we're trying very hard to kind of take the elements of restaurants. Me and my business partners, Sam Woods and Peter Chan, we've kind of come from different aspects of the hospitality world and kind of different levels of it, from cafes to fine dining establishments, and there are elements of everything that we love. Some of our favorite restaurants are just extremely cozy kind of neighborhood places, and we absolutely love and respect what people are doing at the top of our industry as well. So being able to take elements that we enjoy from all aspects and try and roll them into something that we like and we want to present is kind of what we're doing here. So yeah, I mean, I guess there's lots of fine dining stuff going on, but we want it to be approachable and welcoming and comfortable.
It's a beautiful little building that the restaurant's in. Tell us a little bit about the history of it.
So the building, it's called the Manse, or it has been known as the Manse for most of its life. It was built in 1846. It was originally sort of part of the residences for the Presbyterian Church in Sydney. And it seems like it was held onto as a residence for the Presbyterian monks at the start of its life, but then I think as the church population grew and the kind of area around Haymarket started developing more, the building was moved out of and then became quite an interesting little hub for all different kinds of activities. So it was a blacksmith shop at one point. A guy was building beehives in here. It was at various different times kind of offices for lawyers and accountants and things like that. A lot of different professionals kind of moved into the building and had their families here. And over time, it was it had another story added to it as well, so it was quite a bit taller than what it is now. And some various outbuildings and that kind of thing, stables and pigsty and chicken coops and all of those kind of things were out the back, which is kind of hard to imagine now when you look at the cityscape. But yeah, it was basically from the ground up restored in the 1990s and taken down sandstone brick by brick. And then rebuilt into its current state with as many of the original materials and that kind of thing as possible, but in a way that preserved the building, and it wasn't about to fall down on whoever was going to be taking residence in it next.
Even though it had that rebuild, has it been challenging working in a building like that? We had some pretty serious constraints on us as far as council and heritage and all of those kind of things go. We never wanted to change too much about the building anyway, so that was good for us. But we had to be very sort of conscious of the floors and the staircase and the pressed metal ceilings and that kind of thing. We had to work out how to get lighting in the place without making any new holes in the ceiling, and how to kind of run as much modern electrical for sound system and all of these kind of things that a restaurant needs without making holes in the walls. So it certainly presented some challenges, but we had a fantastic sort of group of designers, and the council were very willing to come to the table when we needed to sort of work out what was going to happen in terms of, say, disabled access and things like that. We had a few compromises, but the council actually raised the level of the footpath for us so that we wouldn't have to make any changes to the 178-year-old entry and exits to the building, so they've really come to the table. How did you discover this site? Was it a suburb that you wanted to be in, or what was the planning involved?
So me and the guys, we were originally talking and looking at sort of 20, maybe 30 seat bars around the kind of Surrey Hills and Darlinghurst area. We wanted something along the lines of Love Tilly Divine, or those kind of things. That's where myself and my business partner Sam met and both worked for years, and we love that small intimate bar vibe, and you can run it with a small team. And as we were looking at those sites, one of the agents who was showing us through a place just off Albion Street in Surrey Hills, he just happened to mention, I've got this amazing building that is about to sort of go onto the market. Would you guys like to come and check it out? And we said, yeah, where is it? And he said, Haymarket, right on the verge of Thai Town there. And that's an area that, has meant a lot to my business partner, Sam. He's got Thai heritage, and my other business partner, Peter, he is Taiwanese. So, we have a really kind of strong connection with this area. And we came down kind of expecting to see quite a small, functional space without too many challenges for us to drop a little bar into. And when we turned up, and the agent was like, yeah, so we're thinking we can probably have 70 or 80 seats over 2 stories in this heritage building. Our jaws hit the floor, but we knew pretty much straight away that it was a very, very happy accident that we were standing in front of what would become Ennui. And I think the decision was made in all of our heads pretty damn quickly that if we don't try and have a go at this, we'll never get an opportunity like this again. So
It's an interesting name for a restaurant. Tell us about the meaning and the reason behind it.
For sure. Ennui is definitely, it's kind of a joke in a lot of ways. Like it's sort of a joke. It's sort of this kind of subverted expectations thing. But when we were talking about what to name the restaurant, I mean, our motivation for getting up and doing this for ourselves rather than kind of, managing restaurants and bars for other people, we just really, really wanted to do it for ourselves. And we were all feeling very kind of stagnant in where our careers were going and all of these kind of things, and discovering that we all felt that way. Like we all were experiencing this feeling of ennui, not just in our professional lives, but in a lot of other ways as well, especially, coming out of COVID and coming out of, the kind of situation that the hospitality industry has been in for the last few years. We just really wanted to do our own thing and wanted to kind of reinvigorate our enthusiasm and all of those kind of things. And so ennui is not a negative emotion for us. It's a motivating factor. It's a reason to keep yourself kind of uncomfortable and to keep trying new things and to keep making progress.
It's the decision to sort of move to Haymarket instead of Surrey Hills and take on that building and create Ennui. Has it changed the clientele and also the shape of the restaurant and what you ended up putting to the market?
It's definitely changed our idea of what we thought we would be offering. The core of what we wanted to do is always kind of remained the same, in that we wanted to be a restaurant that put a really large amount of work and effort into the food, but was presented in a simple way. We wanted it to be a place that had, a really interesting listing of wines and rare whiskies, courtesy of my wonderful friend and business partner, Peter. He's been a whiskey collector for years, and has basically brought his personal collection, at least a portion of it, to the restaurant for us to be able to offer. And that was always going to be something that our bar would have. But now, rather than, it just being a menu designed around maybe one person in the kitchen cooking and two people serving out the front, we had to kind of reimagine and expand our idea to be able to include a more, I guess, holistic view of what an actual restaurant would be rather than just a bar. And, having a proper cocktail program and, a real live bartender and a kitchen that could service 80 seats, and a kitchen team that could, keep up with the demands of doing that. All of those things were kind of new challenges when we decided on this site. And yeah, I'm really glad that we went down this route.
Well, it's become a really popular venue very quickly, and I want to delve into your food in a little while, but I'd like to take a dive into your past because you've worked at some fascinating venues, but whereabouts did you grow up and what sort of role did food play for you when you were a kid?
I was born in Sydney, but did most of my growing up in Melbourne in the Mornington Peninsula. And my parents, they were always, very kind of interested in wine and food and that kind of thing, but weren't, huge cooks at home. And we had a really good kind of dining out, I guess, culture in our family, whether it was, different cuisines and these kind of things, new experiences all the time with different restaurants, which I was very, very lucky to have. And when I in my 20s, I moved to Tasmania, and I was kind of pursuing a career in aged care and disability work and studying at uni to become a nurse. I just couldn't afford to pay my rent basically, and I needed to pick up extra work. And a bloke I knew said, "Hey, there's a restaurant down the road that needs a kitchen hand if you want to pick up some casual hours." And over time, I found I was spending much more time at the restaurant than at uni, and doing more and more and trying to pick up on what was going on inside the restaurant, because I just never experienced that world before. And all of these guys and girls were living lives that I'd kind of only ever seen on telly, and getting to see behind the scenes of how a vinaigrette is put together, or how to shuck oysters, or any of these kind of things. It was just a whole new world to me, and I was completely hooked once I started doing that. So yeah, my journey into the world of food was very, very accidental, and I just fell in love with it from the moment that I started washing up, really. That was in the early 2010s. I think it was 2010. I think I started washing up at a restaurant in Launceston in Tasmania.
In those early years, what were the sort of really important venues and people that you worked with that helped you sort of start to carve a career in the industry?
I got a fantastic opportunity so I got my apprenticeship at a restaurant called Hallam's Waterfront, which was a little sort of seafood restaurant in Launceston with a pretty long history in the area. And the chefs there were guys that never. I don't think they were ever trying to do anything other than cook the best food that they could and try and improve their own skills. And I just working with a guy there called Alex Mullen, who went on to sort of become head chef of a few places down in Hobart, and is still working actively down there now, and is one of my very, very good friends. His just sheer enthusiasm for every single aspect of everything that he did was so infectious, and I just fell in love with his passion, I guess. I didn't realize that that somebody could be, this enthusiastic about cooking and about their craft. And so working with him while I was doing my apprenticeship was hugely influential on me. And then after my apprenticeship, I managed to get myself a job at a restaurant called Stillwater, which is also in Launceston. It was one of the kind of more famous sort of fine dining / hatted venues in Tasmania, working for a chef called Craig Will. And it was there that he gave me the opportunity to sort of step up and become a sous chef, and really start showing me much more in terms of technique and precision, and working within a large team in a kitchen that was, at one point, I think sort of 20 chefs strong, and 3 services a day, 7 days a week. It was a real eye opener for me. So those opportunities were just huge.
You ended up back in Sydney, but what sort of forced the move or the change and for you to come out of Tasmania?
So I worked as the sous chef at Stillwater for a few years, and I had a great time there, and I was getting to have more and more kind of input on menu and working with producers and doing events and all of these kind of things. But it became pretty clear to me after a couple of years, being in Tasmania is brilliant in terms of your access to produce, and the clientele is always wonderful, and if you're the sous chef in one of the, top 10 restaurants in Tasmania, it's very difficult for you to go from being the sous chef to being a head chef of any one of those places. You're kind of waiting around for one of those guys to retire or, have something catastrophic happen in the nicest way possible. Like they're all extremely talented dudes. And it became pretty clear to me that, those positions are very few and far between. And unless you had, money and backing to, to start up your own kind of thing or make a move to, say, another venue which, isn't producing the same kind of level of food and service and those kind of things, then you're a little bit stuck. And I guess this is sort of the point at which I was very, very lucky that, I got an opportunity to move up to Sydney. I applied for a whole bunch of different jobs at different places and sent out my resume to all kinds of venues in Sydney, and ended up having a really, really great conversation with Jared Walsh at Heartsyard in Newtown. And he was looking for an extra pair of hands there. And I flew up with my partner at the time and now wife. And, she went and had a job interview at St. Peter, and I went and had a job interview at Heartsyard, and we both got the gigs. And we made the decision to pack up our lives and come up here and see what we could do with ourselves. So,
what was the move like? From the hospitality industry in Tasmania to the one in Sydney. Was it different?
It was definitely different in that I felt much more kind of sense of community and interconnectedness in Sydney than I did in Tasmania, which I wasn't really expecting at all. Everything in Tassie was, maybe it was just my perception as a young chef and a young man, but it felt very competitive and quite cutthroat, and everyone was constantly just trying to outdo one another. And then I moved to Sydney, and it seemed like there was much more of a kind of collaborative community air to what was going on. Chefs seemed to be very supportive of one another and interested in what each other were, cooking and sharing ideas and techniques and all of those kind of things. And moving to Sydney was a really massive jump for me in terms of suddenly I had access to so much more information and knowledge outside of the kitchen that I was working in, which really surprised me, and I was very, very glad to discover.
Heartsyard had a couple of owners, started by Naomi Hart and Gregory Llewellyn, and then Jared took it over. Do you have any stories of what it was like working in that little kitchen and that it's quite a small restaurant, but a big part of that community there in Newtown?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a really fantastic time working down there. It was really lovely to see. So you're absolutely right about the community aspect. All along King Street and Enmore Road, there's a really good group of hospitality folks, and everyone seems to sort of flick around to each other's venues on days off or after work knockoffs and things like that. And it was funny to be in that space and suddenly seeing all of these chefs and sommeliers and other hospitality people that I'd only kind of seen and heard about on Instagram and Good Food Guide and that kind of thing, just popping in and being in the restaurant. That was really, really interesting. We had I don't know if anything immediately stands out, but working with the team there was great for me. I I learnt a lot. I got a great opportunity to, have input on menu, and working with Jared was really inspiring. He's a fantastic chef, and taught me an enormous amount in a short time. So yeah, that was a really, really good experience.
You bounced around to quite a few sort of key venues that really became hubs of the community in different communities across Sydney. What were the really important places, in the lead up to you starting your own business?
Very important places for me were definitely Love Tilly Divine, which was my gig after Heartsyard. That was a whole new challenge for me, going from working in a team to basically just running that tiny little kitchen. I guess you could use that term pretty loosely there. By myself, and working with a very, very small team, and having all of a sudden full control over everything that was happening in the kitchen, from what was going on with food to food costings and all the administrative stuff as well. That was a massive change for me. And working with the guys at Love Tilly Divine, and sort of within the Love Tilly group as they were expanding from Dis and Eloise and Love Tilly Divine into Ragazzi and Fabrica and the other venues. That was a really awesome thing for me to kind of be near. I absolutely won't take any credit for any of their success, but it was great to be able to kind of work so closely with those Love Tilly guys and kind of get their insight as to what they were thinking in terms of marketing, and what their aims were, and how they were forming their kind of business plans and ideas and these kind of things. That was really fantastic. And then we worked through COVID and the lockdowns and all of those kind of things, and Love Tilly Divine managed to scrape by doing takeaway and setting up a kind of quasi legal bottle shop, I guess. I have no idea about whether or not I should have done that, but it kept the business open, and the council didn't seem to mind too much. Sorry, Sydney City Council. Sorry, Love Tilly Divine. But yeah, like we managed to stay open through all of that, and then when the restrictions were lifted, all of a sudden everyone wanted to be out again, and Tilly went from being a place where you could kind of sit down and have some nibbles and some cheese and a nice glass of something interesting to it was moving more towards being a full-blown restaurant. And that little kind of 25 seat place was suddenly doing 80, 90, 110 cover nights, which was just absolutely nuts. We coming out of that, I think I was a little bit spent. So towards the end of my time there, my wife, she got pregnant with our first daughter, and the birth of my daughter was a real kind of realigning of all of my priorities, I think, in terms of how I was wanting to kind of spend my time and where I needed to be, and how much of it I was able to sort of be with my family. And so that's where things had a bit of a shift for me after my daughter was born.
Was it challenging for you to make that shift but still have a strong career in hospitality, which is very demanding on sort of hours that are out of regular hours?
To be honest with you, man, I think it's the hardest thing that I've ever done. It's hard to kind of put my finger on exactly what about it is difficult, but I mean, I'm in an odd position because as we were getting on We Open, towards the end of last year, my second daughter was born in October, so we opened in September, and then I had another beautiful baby girl in October, and I think I am completely insane for doing this, but it was never, it was never kind of the intention for these things to line up as they did. We'd been talking about opening on We for years and years, we were about 3 years into the kind of process by the time we opened, and so. Yeah, it's hard to know when to pause life and when to hit play on career and vice versa. And sometimes these things just don't wait. So yeah, I'm definitely trying. My motivations, I guess, for business and for working in the industry that I have done. I mean, I love this industry. I love doing what I do. I'm very, very grateful that I get to come to work every day. And aside from being here for quite a while, it doesn't really feel like work to me a lot of the time. I really enjoy this stuff. But I'm also at the point where I have, a young family that I need to support, and I'm not really good at anything else. So I better be doing a damn good job of this, even though it's even though the hours are long and the work is hard.
What surprised you about running your own business compared to working in all those venues?
I think the most surprising thing is the level of responsibility. I mean, I've always felt very kind of responsible whenever I've been given a position to, take some responsibility in a kitchen or as managing a bar or any of those kind of things. But the level of responsibility now is just orders of magnitude greater. And I feel that very, very strongly. I don't know when I thought that my bosses back in the day were, enjoying a day off, but I'm starting to question whether or not they, whether or not they did. There's just so many things to think about all the time, and so many pieces to get in place, and so many things to kind of juggle. It's definitely more work than I anticipated, but it's more work that I am very, very grateful to be able to do,
Tom, we haven't touched on your food at all during this whole chat, and I'm fascinated to know your creative process and sort of what you're doing. Is there a dish or two that you can take us through that sort of exemplifies what you're doing there at Ennui?
For sure. So like one, I guess the food at Ennui, we've been talking a lot about me and my business partners. We've been talking a lot for years about just the kind of things that interest us, food-wise and cooking-wise. I've never really loved being in a position where I was kind of locked into one cuisine or one set of techniques or one set of kind of ingredients from a region. Pretty much all of my work experience has been very, I guess it would be wrong to say having no rules, but working at Stillwater, for instance, in Tassie, the head chef and owner, Craig Will, he had a really fantastic sort of understanding of French techniques and Italian techniques and those kind of things, and then very effortlessly just employed as many interesting ingredients and flavors and textures and things from, Southeast Asia and Japan and China into his cooking, and it just didn't ever seem like something he had to think about very hard. It just felt natural when he was, making a pasta sauce or, seasoning a jus or any of these kind of things, for there to be, soy sauce and, rice vinegar and sake and these kind of things. And so when I came and then came to Sydney and worked with Jared at Heartsyard, it was more of the same kind of thing. There was this very, very big focus on what, does that taste good? Does it look nice? Does it smell nice? It wasn't really a worry about this isn't French enough, or this isn't Italian enough, or this isn't Japanese enough. So I guess I always kind of approach my cooking in those kind of ways. And as far as the food at Ennui goes, I am working with Sam Woods, who's a very, very dear friend of mine and probably the best chef who's not a chef that I've ever met in my entire life. And, his cooking is so technique based and so well rounded, that, collaborating with him on something like the technique for our duck at Ennui has been just a process where we can say, what are the things that we love about duck anywhere in the world? Like if you go and have Peking duck in China and you get this, amazing crispy skin and this beautiful kind of smoked aspect and, the beautiful deep golden color, that's fantastic. But I also love, the kind of Western preparation of duck that's moist and tender and, more on the rare side and juicy. And, how can we go about making these things work together? How much work would it be? Do we apply this kind of dry aging, salting, smoking, curing, glazing thing, and then cook the dish in a way that it's presented? I guess it makes sense if you look at it and it looks like a French dish, but it's a very not French way of making duck, if that makes sense. Yeah, and so like there's things like that on our menu that I guess we're just kind of in the pursuit of doing things that are interesting to us and rewarding for us to do, and hopefully the result that comes out of the end is something delicious. But yeah, I guess that approach of putting heaps of effort into the preparation of these things and then presenting them in a way that is still, it's not challenging or off-putting or any of those kind of things for someone that wants to come down and just have a nice dinner with their partner or their friends and not have to think too much.
Well, it's amazing what you're doing there in such a short amount of time as well. What do you love about what you do?
I love cooking in that it's a very kind of instant feedback loop. It's kind of if you make something lovely for someone and they eat it and they think it's delicious, it's they're instantly you're sort of making someone happy. You're nourishing them. You're making them feel good. You're facilitating their enjoyment and their good time, and that pleasing people aspect of what I do. I really, really enjoy. I love cooking for friends. I love cooking for family. I love cooking for our customers. I really, really enjoy putting a large amount of effort into making something for another person. And, this probably comes back to a lot of my past work experience, from a healthcare perspective of trying to make sure that somebody else is, happy and comfortable and safe and all of those kind of things. And hospitality is, I guess, another aspect of that same kind of care in a lot of ways. I really enjoy making nice things for other people.
Well, it's a wonderful approach, and an absolute honour to catch up with you today on Deep in the Weeds, and very much looking forward to seeing where you take Ennui from here. Tom, thanks for coming on the show, and please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks a lot for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.